Ren feels human, messy, vulnerable, unfiltered, and people crave that now more than ever. Especially younger audiences struggling mentally themselves. Many listeners discovered pieces of their own anxiety, fear, depression, loneliness, or emotional conflict inside his songs. That emotional reflection created connection. And connection created loyalty. But the darkest truth behind Ren's story may be this. The same sensitivity making him an extraordinary artist likely also intensified his suffering. Highly emotionally aware people often experience pain differently. They absorb experiences deeply. They internalize emotions intensely. And when that combines with physical illness, the result can become psychologically overwhelming. Yet somehow, instead of collapsing completely, Ren created art from it. Not shallow art. Not commercial art. Human art. And that distinction matters. Because people remember art that makes them feel understood. That's why millions continue discovering his work even now. Not because he fits industry formulas, but because he breaks them. There's also something symbolic about his rise happening online rather than through traditional industry systems. For years, the entertainment industry often rewarded perfection over authenticity. Image over truth. Polish over vulnerability. But internet audiences changed that. People started searching for something real. And when Ren appeared, many felt like they had finally found it. An artist openly discussing darkness without hiding behind celebrity masks. That honesty became magnetic. And perhaps unintentionally, Ren created something bigger than music. He created emotional permission. Permission for people to discuss suffering openly. Permission for vulnerability. Permission for emotional honesty. That impact goes far beyond entertainment. And it explains why audiences speak about him differently from normal musicians. Many fans don't simply say they enjoy his songs. They say his music helped them. That is a completely different type of relationship between creator and audience. And it rarely happens accidentally. It usually happens when art comes from genuine experience. Looking back at his journey now, the contrast feels almost unbelievable. A young artist trapped inside years of illness and uncertainty eventually becomes one of the internet's most emotionally respected performers. But none of it happened quickly. And none of it came easily. There were years of confusion before recognition. Years of pain before applause. Years of isolation before connection. And perhaps that long struggle is exactly why his art feels so emotionally layered today. Because suffering changes perspective permanently. People who survive darkness often see the world differently afterward. Their priorities change. Their emotions deepen. Their understanding of human pain expands. And that emotional depth becomes visible in their work. That is exactly what happened with Ren. Every performance carries weight behind it. History behind it. Experience behind it. Which is why even simple moments inside his music feel emotionally intense. There's something underneath the surface. Something viewers can sense even if they cannot explain it. And that emotional tension keeps audiences watching. It keeps them replaying performances. It keeps them emotionally invested. Because humans naturally respond to truth. Even painful truth. Especially painful truth. And Ren built his artistry around confronting painful truths directly. Mental struggle. Fear. Inner conflict. Illness. Loneliness. Self-doubt. These are uncomfortable subjects most people avoid publicly. Ren walked directly into them. And strangely, that honesty became his greatest strength. Because while polished entertainment may attract attention temporarily, truth creates lasting impact. That is why his rise online continues feeling significant. People don't merely consume his content. They connect to it emotionally. An emotional connection is the strongest force in storytelling. Stronger than hype. Stronger than trends. Stronger than algorithms. A person may forget a catchy song. but they rarely forget something that emotionally moved them. And Ren's performances move people deeply, especially those who understand suffering personally. Perhaps that is the hidden reason his audience continues growing. Not because he markets himself perfectly, but because his work reaches people psychologically. And once art reaches someone psychologically, they remember it. They carry it with them. That kind of impact cannot be manufactured easily. It usually emerges from real lived experience. Which brings this story back to the beginning. Before the fame, before the viral performances, before millions discovered him, there was simply a young artist trapped in a battle almost nobody fully understood. A battle that damaged his body, shattered parts of his mental state, and nearly stole the future he dreamed about. But instead of disappearing completely, Ren transformed suffering into expression. And through that expression, millions of strangers found pieces of themselves reflected back. That is why his story matters. Not because it is glamorous, but because it is human. Painfully human. And maybe that is the real reason audiences cannot stop watching him. Because behind the music, behind the performances, behind the internet fame, people see someone who survived darkness without pretending it never existed. And in today's world, that level of honesty feels almost shocking. The disturbing illness changed Ren forever. But strangely, it may also be the reason the world finally listened. And perhaps the most unsettling part of Ren's story is realizing how close everything came to disappearing completely. Because when people watch his performances today, they usually see confidence, control, creativity. But they rarely imagine the years where even basic daily life became difficult. There were moments where the future looked uncertain. Moments where continuing music probably felt impossible. And when someone loses hope slowly over years, it changes their relationship with reality itself. You stop planning far ahead. You stop imagining success. You focus only on survival. That mindset leaves scars long after the worst moments pass. Which explains why so much of Ren's music feels emotionally heavy even during calmer moments. There's still tension underneath it. Like someone who survived a storm but still hears thunder in the distance. And audiences subconsciously feel that emotional history. That's part of what makes his storytelling so powerful. Most artists tell stories. Ren sounds like he confesses them. There's vulnerability in the way he delivers emotion. Not polished vulnerability designed by a label. Raw vulnerability. The kind that makes listeners uncomfortable because it feels too real. Especially during quieter moments in his performances. The pauses. The facial expressions. The sudden emotional shifts. Those moments reveal something important about Ren's artistry. He doesn't perform pain like entertainment. He performs it like memory. And memory carries weight. That weight became especially visible as more people started analyzing his lyrics online. Fans noticed recurring themes. Internal conflict. Self-destruction. Isolation. Fear of losing control. The battle between darkness and identity. These themes appeared again and again throughout his work. And many listeners realized something disturbing. This wasn't fictional storytelling. This sounded like someone documenting psychological survival in real time. That realization changed how audiences viewed him completely. Suddenly Ren wasn't just another talented musician. He became a symbol of emotional honesty in an era dominated by performance and image. But emotional honesty comes with consequences. Because exposing your inner world publicly can become dangerous psychologically. Once millions of strangers begin connecting to your pain, the pressure changes. People begin expecting emotional intensity from you constantly. They expect vulnerability, depth, truth. And maintaining that level of emotional openness while still protecting your own mental health is incredibly difficult. Especially for someone who already spent years fighting physically and psychologically. This is one reason Ren's story feels more complicated than many viral success stories online. It isn't simply about talent. It's about endurance. Enduring uncertainty. Enduring suffering. Enduring emotional collapse. And somehow continuing to create despite all of it. That level of resilience fascinates people because most humans understand suffering on some level. Even if their experiences are different, they recognize emotional struggle when they see it honestly expressed. And Ren expresses it honestly. Almost uncomfortably honestly. Which is why his audience reactions often become emotional themselves. People don't just admire the music technically. They feel emotionally seen by it. Especially listeners who battled anxiety, depression, illness, trauma, or loneliness privately. Many of them discovered something shocking while listening to Ren. They realized someone else understood the chaos inside their own mind. That kind of recognition creates powerful emotional attachment. And perhaps that is the hidden reason his rise became so explosive online. Not because audiences merely liked the songs, but because they emotionally needed them. That distinction matters. Entertainment distracts people temporarily. Emotional truth stays with them. And Ren's performances stay with people long after the videos end. Partly because there's genuine risk inside his art. When he performs emotional conflict, it feels unpredictable. Almost dangerous. Like anything could happen emotionally at any moment. That unpredictability creates tension. And tension keeps audiences completely focused. Especially in an internet era where attention spans disappear within seconds. Ren somehow forces people to stop scrolling. To listen. To feel. That ability is extremely rare. And ironically, it may have been born directly from years of suffering. Because pain changes communication. People who survive extreme emotional experiences often speak differently afterward. Their words carry urgency, depth, weight. And Ren's music carries all three. There's also another layer to his story many people overlook. The anger. Not loud obvious anger. Quiet anger. The type created when someone spends years feeling ignored, misunderstood, or dismissed. That emotional frustration appears throughout his performances. Sometimes hidden beneath sadness. Sometimes hidden beneath humor. Sometimes hidden beneath storytelling. But it's there. And it gives his work intensity. Because underneath the vulnerability exists resistance. A refusal to disappear. A refusal to stay silent. A refusal to let suffering erase identity completely. That psychological resistance likely became one of the reasons he survived such dark periods at all. Creativity gave him somewhere to place the chaos. Without that outlet, the story may have ended very differently. And perhaps Ren himself understands that better than anyone. Music didn't merely create success for him. It probably helped keep him mentally alive during certain periods. That changes how you hear the performances. Suddenly the songs no longer feel like products. They feel necessary. Like emotional survival mechanisms transformed into art. And maybe that's why listeners trust him emotionally. Because nothing about his work feels manufactured. Even imperfect moments feel authentic. Actually, especially the imperfect moments. Modern audiences are exhausted by perfection. They trust flaws more than polish now. And Ren's openness about suffering made him feel real in a way many celebrities no longer do. That realism became magnetic online. People began recommending his performances to friends, saying things like, "You need to watch this. This feels different. I've never seen anything like this." Not because the production was massive, but because the emotion was undeniable. And emotional authenticity spreads faster than marketing when audiences truly connect with it. That's exactly what happened with Ren. His audience grew almost like word-of-mouth emotional discovery. One person emotionally affected another person. Then another. Then another. Until suddenly millions were discussing an artist who spent years suffering mostly unnoticed. There's something strangely poetic about that. A person once trapped in isolation eventually reaching millions through honesty about isolation itself. And perhaps that's why his story continues resonating so strongly. Because beneath all the music, what audiences are really witnessing is transformation. A transformation from silence into expression. From suffering into creativity. From isolation into connection. But transformation never fully erases damage. And that's important to remember. People often romanticize survival stories after they become successful. But survival itself is messy, complicated, painful, and recovery is rarely linear. There are still shadows left behind. You can sometimes hear those shadows in Ren's quieter moments. The exhaustion hidden beneath humor. The emotional heaviness beneath confidence. The tension beneath the performance. And strangely, those imperfections make audiences trust him even more. Because real healing rarely looks perfect. Real healing still carries scars. And Ren never fully hides the scars. That may be the bravest part of his artistry. Not the talent. Not the storytelling. The honesty. The willingness to let people witness emotional imperfection publicly. Most people spend their entire lives hiding their inner struggles. Ren turned his into art. And through that honesty, he accidentally created something larger than music itself. He created emotional connection between strangers. People from different countries, backgrounds, and experiences all finding pieces of themselves inside the same performances. That kind of connection is powerful. Especially in a world where many people secretly feel disconnected emotionally. Which brings us back to the central truth behind Ren's story. The illness changed everything. Not only physically, psychologically, emotionally, artistically. It reshaped his entire relationship with life. But in a strange and tragic way. It also shaped the artist millions eventually fell in love with. Without the suffering, perhaps the emotional depth never develops. Without the isolation, perhaps the honesty never emerges. Without the darkness, perhaps the connection never happens. That doesn't make the pain beautiful. It makes the survival meaningful. And maybe that distinction explains why so many people feel emotionally affected after hearing Ren for the first time. Because deep down, people recognize they are not simply watching talent. They are watching someone who endured something real. Something painful. Something human. And instead of hiding it, he turned it into a voice the world could finally hear. There's another reason Ren's story unsettles people so deeply. It forces audiences to confront something uncomfortable about modern society. How many people are silently suffering while appearing completely normal on the outside? Because during the years Ren was battling illness, confusion, and emotional collapse, the world around him kept moving.